Hello and welcome to another edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Right off the bat on the old show today, you may have heard about this particular situation by now, but apparently the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, is actually looking to ban you taking your personal car and turning it into a racer, much like Von Gittin Jr.'s RTR Mustang drift car, where it basically has a VIN tag but has been totally transformed into a race car. Now, this situation is an interesting one, and the EPA apparently passed a law back in the midsummer of 2015. And this deal kind of fumbled around and they didn't really say too much about it. And what they did is tried to clean up an old law that was on the books. Basically, it did a deal where most race cars, or cars that were considered just competition use only, or non-road vehicles, if you will, they cleaned up that law because non-road vehicles, according to the EPA, are everything from like forklifts to garden tractors, lawn mowers, farm tractors, heavy equipment, things like that. They consider non-road vehicles, basically meaning that they are not EPA compliant, or they don't have to go through the same emissions that road cars do. Now, as far as what you want to do with your modification side, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Suspension, wheels, tires, body modification. But what the EPA is really hunting after is making sure that the greenhouse gases, according to the Clean Air Act, remain the same as factory. So you can't go and mess with any of the emission regulations, and you can't do anything to the engine at all as far as these modifications are concerned. Now, obviously, this is a deal that's pretty shocking right off the bat. And the folks over at SEMA, the Specialty Equipment Marketing Association, you may know them for the big SEMA show every year. They fight for the rights of people that want to modify their automobiles. And the modification world is a multi-billion, in fact, over $35 billion industry a year. So it's a big one indeed. They finally came up with what the EPA was doing late in 2015, sat in on a clarification of what was going on January 20th of 2016, where the EPA said that absolutely yes, they will be going after owners of these machines who have modified their vehicles in such a fashion that no longer will pass the greenhouse emissions as far as the vehicle in factory trim is. So, like I said, you can pretty much do whatever you want, but if you fiddle at all with the factory engine, that's going to be a problem. Now, getting back to Von Gittin Jr.'s drift car, basically this vehicle's engine has been replaced with a very high-performance Roush Industries NASCAR-style engine in this car. So, there's a possibility that this car could live on without regulations coming down on it. But let's move on using the Mustang as a platform. Let's say you go out and buy yourself a brand new GT350R and you want to make this thing a track racing star, stripping out all the interior, making it as lightweight as can be, and stripping out all the emission units off of that engine to make that engine run as lean and as mean as possible. That's where your problem's going to lie. And basically, the EPA is claiming that they will fine these folks, especially the folks that are skirting the issue, calling their vehicle a competition-only car, but yet has all the parts and pieces to make it road legal and are still using it on the street. And if they find you, they will fine you a fine of upwards of just under 40,000 US dollars for each engine that you have that's not in compliance with the EPA regs. So this is a big shot across the bow, and SEMA is actually coming after the EPA, claiming you have to come out with significant leeway time. If this law is going to go into effect, you can't just spring it on people. You have to tell them and give them enough time to be able to put their vehicles back into compliance. Now, when I first started really looking into this and looking into what exactly is going on, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know exactly how the regulations work, but one of the things I thought of right off the bat is there's a thing called Drag Week here in the United States. In fact, 2 hours from Motorcars HQ, there are 3 big-time sanctioning body drag strips, and what will happen is they'll take very, very highly modified cars, and you go to each drag strip and make your record runs as hard as you can go. Well, this has come into a competition where these cars are far from stock. They're mainly cars like this, a twin turbocharged pro modified Mustang, but basically with several little emissions, the horn, lights, and turn signals, things like that. And certain states will allow these vehicles to become road legal. And what they do during drag week is you go to that first drag strip, wring its neck, making the quickest lap that you can, but basically you have to drive this car to the next event, and they'll go from track to track to track during that week and end up back in the track that they started on, all while hauling a trailer and trying to get around, side towns and everything. And they have to get it in these towns and take pictures of their automobiles in front of some landmark. In fact, one of the drag weeks that happened last summer, the summer of 2015, one of the landmarks that they had to park next to and take a photograph of is just 30 miles, or less than 20 minutes away from Motorcars HQ. It was a pretty intriguing little situation, and obviously none of these cars or anything have any little semblance of any automobile that you can buy from the Ford Motor Company, and have had no VIN numbers whatsoever. So I'm not for 100% sure if these vehicles are going to be able to skirt this issue or if they're coming right after it. You think of a NASCAR stock car, a full-on top fuel car, things like this. Are these things going to be under these EPA regs? Obviously, they never were a vehicle from stock. You think even in drag racing class, the pro stock class is basically the closest thing you can get to a full professional category car that still has a tad bit of factory steel inside of the vehicle. So it's going to be an interesting situation how this deal is going to work. The SEMA organization is fighting this quite aggressively, and if you want to get in on the action, on my Facebook page right now, the Motorcars Enthusiast Facebook page, my personal Facebook page, my personal Twitter account, I have sent out the call, and it's basically a deal where you can sign a petition to have the EPA not move forward with this particular deal. Now, it does take a little bit of wrangling. You have to set up an account. You got to go back and forth with an email a tad bit, but it doesn't take very long, and you too can sign this particular petition as well. Like I said, the link's in the show notes. It'll take you right over to the Motorcars Facebook page, and I got a link that'll take you right over to sign that particular petition to say, no, you should be able to allow to take a factory car and make it into a race car if you so desire, even if you're kind of skirting the issue by driving it on public roads. So it's going to be an interesting deal over the next several months, because they're going to make their decision in July of 2016 on what the EPA is going to do. So it's going to be interesting to see what just happens with this particular situation. And that's all there was that I thought was for talking about for this edition of Motorcars Enthusiasts. Again, don't forget to like us on the Facebook page, and that link is on there if you want to sign the petition to say, heck no, you can't do this to us, the EPA. And it's going to be interesting to see what this deal does in the future. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you again real soon.